All right, it's been 48 hours since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That has given us some time to process. It's given us some time to observe the reactions from all fronts. And now it's time to get serious because we have been presented with an obligation in the face of a declared enemy. Now, there's a lot of conversation. I've been part of it back in June when we had the political assassinations of Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark here in Minnesota. I was part of a wide variety of media interviews with legacy outlets here in the state of Minnesota, talking about toning down the rhetoric, bringing down the temperature. And I actually got some pretty decent accolades from folks who are not political allies for engaging in good faith with that conversation and saying, yes, we do have a responsibility to lead in terms of the tone that we set and the temperature with which we engage in the public discourse. However, there is another side to that coin. You can err in that direction. It is possible to be a Neville Chamberlain, right? It is possible to be so eager to come across as reasonable and gentle and kind that you avoid recognizing and acknowledging a clear and present danger. And that's what I see happening in this moment. War has been declared upon Americans by other Americans. That fact is unavoidable, and we're going to go through all the evidence that I've accumulated in the past 48 hours, and I'm not the only one. I'm not some unique observer of fact here. Like, there's lots of other people who are noticing this, but I'm going to show you what I've been seeing that indicates that war has been declared upon Americans by other Americans, and that is a fact that we have a responsibility to acknowledge. Now, we also have a responsibility to act appropriately in response, and that means not engaging in violence, not encouraging violence, not directing people toward violent actions and outbursts and irresponsible reactions. That is true. It is equally true that we cannot understate or underestimate the degree to which this threat is obviously real. We just watched it happen. Last night, I laid in bed alongside my 12-year-old son, who, the reason why he was in my bed instead of his bed is because he's terrified. The reason why he's terrified is because even though his mother and I tried to shield him from everything that's gone on in the last 48 hours, he figured it out. The conversation's happening amongst his friends, and he unwisely decided to go look up the video, and he watched, my 12-year-old son watched Charlie Kirk be shot in the throat and bleed out in real time. And this kid was already anxious. He was already worried based upon what happened back in June here in Minnesota, based upon the fact that he sees his dad taking steps to secure the premises here in our home. And it's not irrational. There's nothing wrong with him for having those concerns. But the fact that a 12-year-old American boy in the year 2025 is light up awake at night, needing to be consoled and counseled by his father because he has a rational fear that somebody is coming to get him and those he cares about, that is a reality that cannot be evaded. It cannot be dismissed. It cannot be understated. we have a responsibility. And by we, I specifically mean those of us like myself who are entrusted with public trust. Those of us who have election certificates, those of us who are engaged in the public conversation. It is our responsibility above and beyond everybody else's to acknowledge that truth and to act accordingly. And what I'm going to outline here today is a war plan. And yes, the rhetoric. He used the word war. A war plan for how to defeat these ghouls once and for all, because it must happen. They must be neutralized. And I don't mean killed. I don't mean physically harmed. I mean deprived of the capacity to organize, to act in violation of the rights of others, to function in civilized society. The people who are celebrating this right now, the people who have encouraged it, the people whose rhetoric, you're so concerned about my rhetoric, who's killed somebody and then I've celebrated. When did that happen? Never. In the United States, a fellow American, somebody who's an innocent, who just has different ideas. Doesn't happen on the right. But we've seen it happen. We've seen a proliferation, and again, we're going to go through it here, a proliferation of celebration on the left. And not just from yahoos and influencers on TikTok or Twitter, from university faculty, from Democrat political operatives, from an elected congresswoman, at least one. We'll go through that here momentarily. From some of my colleagues in the House on the other side of the aisle, promoting this rhetoric. I'm supposed to ignore that. I'm supposed to speak kindly in response. I'm supposed to concern myself with decorum and respect as people are organizing online to destroy me, my family, my country. No. The time for that, you know what time it is? The time now is for bold action. The time now is for George Patton. The time now is for George Washington. The time now is to stand up against a clear and present evil and craft and execute a plan to utterly remove it from our society. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So let's start with some of the many myriad of examples of things that are going on right now. The purpose here, just to outline that, is to provide the why, right? Provide the why for the what that I'm going to prescribe at the end. So make sure you stay tuned until the end. We need to understand what it is that we're up against. We need to acknowledge the reality that we are in, for all intents and purposes, a soft civil war in the United States of America. And that is not an exaggeration. Believe me, I wish it was. I really do. I wish that I was the crazy one. I wish that I was the one who's unhinged. I wish that I had no idea what I'm talking about. But I'm going to provide you with ample evidence that I, in fact, am 100% correct. All right, so here we go. Let's just go down the list, right? Let's just look at what's happening in the world right now. What's been happening in the last 48 hours. All right, let's start with this one. So this is just to give you some context for this guy. This guy's name is John McWhorter. And I did a little bit of research on this guy. He's apparently a highly credentialed, celebrated academic. He's also currently, as of this moment, a columnist for the New York Times. All right. So this is not some fringe person. This is not some TikTok influencer. This is not some, person who we can or should dismiss as insignificant. This is a thought leader on the political left. All right. Now, I want you to watch and listen to this video of him talking where he very explicitly says he wants Donald Trump dead. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
I have taken a great deal of heat for saying or implying that I wish somebody would kill Donald Trump. And that is exactly what I was implying. It was irresponsible.
That is what you were implying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I said it. And it was irresponsible of me to say that in a public space. I really shouldn't have said it here. Now, I already did.
All right. So I just want to pause to point out a couple of things that I'm observing here. First of all, notice the host's reaction to what McWhorter just said. Because there's a lot to read into, and don't tell me you can't discern from people's body language and facial expressions what it is that they're thinking or what it is that they believe. Anybody who works in either sales or law enforcement or psychiatry can tell you that body language is very telling. You play a poker game, you know that you can discern from people's body language and their facial expressions what's going on inside their head. So let's not play dumb, all right? This host reacts to McWhorter saying that he actually did intend to call for the assassination of President Donald Trump. He reacts with shock, but it's a certain kind of shock, you can tell. The shock is not, oh my God, what a horrible thing for a person to say and think. That's not the reaction. The reaction is, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that out loud. Woo! That's the reaction. And he settles back into his chair. Look at this freeze frame right here. Settles back into his chair, and he's like, all right, let's have this conversation. All right, cool. Let's have this conversation. And then the other thing that's very notable is when McWhorter says, I shouldn't have said that, he's very clearly not referring to the substance of what he said. What he's referring to is the fact that it probably wasn't wise to say it out loud in public. And then he doubles down. Listen to this.
So, I have to own it. I did say it. Somebody has asked, do you say that in private? And yes, I have said it often, and I have only halfway been kidding, and I'm going to say it again. Yes, and it is a smaller side of me. I should not wish for another person to suffer, even if it's a hideous pig of a man like him. It's not the Quaker way. There's a Quaker history in my background. It is the smaller side of me. However, I was just going to say, I should not have said that in a public space. I feel like Julianne Malveaux, the economist, famously said about Clarence Thomas that she hoped that his wife put a lot of fat in his
fed him a lot of fried chicken
so that he would die. And that's always
so his arteries got clogged with cholesterol, and that he would have a stroke or a heart attack.
Yeah, that was most certainly her lowest moment. And now here I am doing the same thing. Now, frankly, she was saying that about Thomas because she thinks that he's not black properly. Whereas I think my reasons for wishing that somebody else would wind up running as the Republican candidate for president are maybe larger than that. I fear for my country, not that we're going to end up going to Mars, but I don't think he should be running things. But I should not have said that on this show.
Yeah, well, there you go, right? And no condemnation from the host. None. Not even an attempt. They make reference to a previous wish from a prominent and influential leftist for Clarence Thomas to be killed. And they do so without any sense of humility or regret. I mean, he says, oh, that was her lowest moment, but he doesn't condemn it. He doesn't say she was wrong. In fact, he goes on to justify why she said that. So you get no moral credit for pretending, for posing as if, oh, well, this is one of my lowest moments. No, you're doing the thing. You're saying the thing. And you believe the thing. And we can all see it. All right? Now, I hope black people are noticing, right? Here's two black guys who have just made it abundantly clear, especially in their reference to Clarence Thomas, that their solidarity with you has nothing whatsoever to do with skin color, ethnicity, race, or history. You're either one of them ideologically, you're either on board with their political operation, you're either a servant of their plantation, or they will wish you dead. We just saw it. We just saw it. So where do your allegiances lie, black men? Where do your allegiances lie? Do they lie with the color of your skin? Do they lie with being thought well of by people who would wish you dead if you dared to disagree with them? Are you a slave? Are you a servant? Or are you a man, an American, somebody who understands what time it is and is ready to take your community back and your country back? That's a question every black man needs to answer right now. Along those lines, let's look at this one next. This is a video, and I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know what city this guy's in, but this is a video of a black man outside of a church where there's apparently some sort of vigil going on out of respect for Charlie Kirk. And let's just hear what he has to say.
Where is Channel 2 at and Channel 4 at when they really supposed to be reporting something, bro? Listen, look at this, bro. This is in the middle of Highland Park, bro, on Woodward. They doing praise and worship, bro. All these people on the steps, bro. They ain't worried about none of y'all. They know God got them. You're not about to come get them off these steps. None of that. This is the most gangster display I seen in the city. I don't care about your Dracos or none of that, bro. They out here in the middle of Woodward, bro. Deep like this, repping for God. Where is Channel 2 and Channel 4 at, bro?
Inconvenient narrative. What this reporting on this doesn't do anything for the agenda, right? And that's why the legacy media exists. The legacy media exists.
This is y'all need the YNs. Y'all don't want no smoke with them. You feel me? Them the YCs. Y'all don't want to see the young Christians. You feel me? Yeah. YCs out here right now. Rapping. Not worried about none of that, boy. I wish the devil would come down here. All you niggas talking about demon time, not right now. You see what time it is. Yeah.
Look at this. Look, I can't tell you how much that warms my heart. Like I feel actual chills right now watching that, and I already watched it, but watching it again, actual chills. Because, yeah, you know, he keeps saying, like, where's Channel 2? Where's Channel 4? Well, they're on assignment. That's where they're at. They're on assignment. And their assignment ain't you. Their assignment ain't reporting the truth. Their assignment isn't presenting perspective from a diverse array of points of view. That's not their assignment. Their assignment is to uphold the goddamn narrative. That's their assignment, and they're on it. That's where they're at. But things are about to change. I mean, I look at that, and this is what I had to say about it. I mean, you can feel it in the air right now. 48 hours after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the weak have been encouraged. The passive have been activated. America is awake, and we are coming for our enemies with every legal means available. And by the way, if those legal means are lacking, we'll come up with new ones. But, and I don't want to, again, I'll get to the what later of what we need to do and the path forward. But there is a way to do this. There is a way to combat this evil that we've all seen in the last 48 hours. That does not involve violence. It doesn't involve returning tit for tat, right? It doesn't involve any of that. But it does involve taking seriously our institutional responsibilities to protect the innocent and to administer justice. All right. So let's go forward here. So this one I just got. This comes from Congressman Tom Emmer who I'm very proud to say is my congressman. Tom is one of my, I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say, I don't think I deserve to say that he's a mentor, because I don't know him well enough to make that claim, but he's certainly somebody who I look up to, because when he was in the House of Representatives, as I currently am, he was basically me, right? Like this is a guy who he once authored a bill to castrate sexual offenders. All right. Now, I got to tell you, I got to be really honest. I don't know if I would have signed on to that, right? Like that might be outside my wheelhouse, but he did that back in the day, and God bless him for it. And between then and now, he's really negotiated political reality to the point where he's now the majority whip of the United States House of Representatives. He's in the line of succession, right? He could be president of the United States. And he's taken the lead on this. He's our highest elected official within the Republican Party here in Minnesota. And that gives him an informal position of leadership for the entire conservative movement in our state. And I'm very proud to say that here he is taking Ilhan Omar to task, as I have as well. And we'll get to what I had to say in reaction to something she said later. But this is Breitbart News, as you can see. Breitbart News reported that Ilhan Omar just shared a video repeatedly smearing Charlie Kirk and dancing on his grave, reposting someone endorsing every word in the clip. Quote, Kirk was a reprehensible human being, a stochastic terrorist. With his last dying words, he was spewing racist dog whistles. Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck. Okay, that's all right. Well, let's look at the actual video, and I haven't watched this yet, so this should be interesting.
Charlie Kirk's dead, and before his body got cold, the far-right propped his corpse up as a cudgel for their holy war. I've never seen more people within the same sentence both condemn political violence and then immediately call for political violence against their opposition. Don't be fooled. These people don't give a single shit about Charlie Kirk. They are just using his death to further their Christo-fascist agenda. And before I continue, I need to say that this revisionist history about who Kirk was is just as perplexing. I'm seeing all these heartfelt statements coming from Democratic politicians and celebrities applauding Kirk as some bastion of free speech and debate. Kirk was a reprehensible human being. He enacted his political agenda by preying upon weak-minded people. He took complex socioeconomic issues and simplified them by pointing fingers at outgroups, demonizing those groups, and then sicking his massive following on them. He was a stochastic terrorist, an adamant transphobe. He denied the genocide happening in Palestine. He believed in the subjugation of women, and with his last dying words, he was spewing racist dog whistles. Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck. And all of that said, none of us should want to live in a society where these types of killings become the norm. It's the sign of a sick and dying world, and we can both denounce this violence and also realize that Kirk and his ilk's rhetoric are why it happens. And you can see this rhetoric continuing after his death. Far-right extremists are clogging social media, practically begging to use his death as an excuse to enact massive retributory violence against Democrats or liberals or leftists. They are looking for any excuse to justify their desire to kill their opposition. As of writing this, we have no idea why Kirk was shot, yet the fucking President of the United States is already using this as an opportunity to demonize his opposition. The hypocrisy is astounding and terrifying.
What the hell am I watching?
It is. These same folks begging for blood were silent when Democratic leader of the Minnesota House, Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were assassinated in their homes. The president gave remarks from the Oval Office about Kirk's murder and said nothing about the 3 kids shot in a high school in Denver yesterday. Republican commentators are outraged that people would make light of Kirk's death and laugh their asses off at Nancy Pelosi's husband being beaten with a hammer and still to this day mock the death of George Floyd. And the reason is they don't actually give a fuck about the violence. They don't care about Kirk's death. The only thing they care about is winning, about using this situation as leverage to further their political agenda of turning this country into a Christo-fascist authoritarian state. And the Democrats, violence. By normalizing Kirk and cosplaying norms are allowing them to cling to this martyr narrative. The only thing that matters to these people is ensuring that the fictitious world they've created is the one that dominates, and they will hang the corpse of Charlie Kirk on their banner if it means that they'll win.
All right, geez Louise, there is a lot to unpack in that one. Holy smokes. First of all, I don't know what I was watching. Like, what in the hell kind of a editorial decision is it to sit there and have footage of you fixing your roof and installing a sunlight while you're spewing some of the most hateful, demonstrably inaccurate nonsense that's ever been articulated in the public discourse. Interesting editorial choice. And again, let's focus on the fact that Ilhan Omar retweeted this, apparently reposted this, and obviously says she agrees with every word, according to what Tom Emmer is saying. But let's just kind of go through the content a little bit. So first of all, this idea that there's this proliferation of voices on the right who have come out in the last 48 hours calling for retaliatory violence. Where? Who? Show me your receipts. And in particular, you can't just show me anybody, right? Like, you can't just show me like some random person on TikTok or YouTube who is saying something that's off the rails. Because what we have to contrast it against is the fact that we're currently talking about something that was just expressed by a Congresswoman of the United States, Ilhan Omar. She retweeted this and apparently agrees with every word, okay? So you got to show me like for like. You got to show me elected officials in positions of tremendous institutional influence, whether they be in government or in other institutions as well, faculty members. I mean, we're going to get to it here. I'm going to show you examples of teachers and professors and journalists. We've already talked about a columnist for the New York Times justifying violence. So that's the quality of person who you need to present to me on the right who's calling for retaliatory violence. And good luck, because you're not going to find them, because nobody's doing that. What you do see is you see folks like myself who are calling for the activation of every legal institutional means we have under American jurisprudence to salt the earth of the leftist institutions and organizations that are responsible for what that guy is comfortable saying. Now, that's not violence. That is not like for like. That is not tit for tat. That's called the administration of justice. That's what we're calling for on the right. And I know that makes you uncomfortable. Oh, makes me nervous when you talk like that. I don't care. And I never will. You just shot one of us in the neck. My 12-year-old got to see it and lies awake at night worried that it's going to happen to his dad. You think I care for 1 second how sensitive and offended you are by my rhetoric? If you've got substance to bring, if you can counter my argument, if you can establish a premise, supporting evidence, and a valid, logical, truthful conclusion, you got my attention. But those on the left never will, because that's not how they operate. And we just saw a great example of that here with this absurd video. And again, Breitbart News reporting, Ilhan Omar shared this video repeatedly, smearing Charlie Kirk and dancing on his grave, reposting someone endorsing every word in the clip. And again, he says Kirk was a reprehensible human being, a stochastic terrorist. With his last dying words, he was spewing racist dog whistles. Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck. And that last bit there, and we'll get to it, is the attempt on the left to try to portray this assassin as a product of the right wing. And I can't wait to dig into that. We're going to get to that. It might be the next thing we look at. Let's just see. I'm just going through my feed here. I'm just going through my feed and showing you what I'm seeing. So there's this effort to try to make this about gun control. Just after, like after the Annunciation Catholic school shooting that we had here a couple of weeks ago in Minneapolis, the immediate pivot, the immediate response from everybody on the institutional left, elected or not, in the legacy media, all of them, the immediate response was to completely ignore, to put on blinders to the identity and ideology of a person who woke up that morning intending to kill children, who actually followed through and did so, ignoring who he was, ignoring why he did it, which, by the way, he left behind a detailed explanation of what his thought process was. Okay? Like, there's no evading it. It can't be evaded. It's right there in front of you. But they pretend, oh, no, none of that matters. None of that exists. You know what the problem is? The problem is that Walter Hudson might have a gun. The problem is that, random citizen, law-abiding, who's never committed a crime in their life might have access to a weapon of such capacity that they could actually effectively defend themselves against somebody like that. Against somebody like this Robinson guy who just killed Charlie Kirk. The problem isn't these crazies who want to murder their fellow Americans. The problem is their fellow Americans who don't want to get murdered and as a result want to maintain the capacity to defend themselves. That's the real problem. Well, that's done. That's dead. The gun control movement's over. So this guy, Tim Miller, I don't know who the hell he is. He said, the pictures of the gunmen as a kid with massive weapons. I understand that for some folks, this is part of a culture, a way for parents, kids to bond. But I wish there was more of an effort within that culture to stop treating guns as cool toys. Feel like the plot has been lost. And as I read that, all I can think about is my own kids. And particularly their relationship with their grandfather. Believe it or not, you wouldn't know. I wouldn't expect you to know based upon how I talk about the Second Amendment and how I talk about our self-defense rights. But I'm not a big gun guy. I'm not. I couldn't tell you, if I were to look at a gun, I couldn't tell you what model it is or what caliber. I don't know. I don't know what the actual numbers 30-06 refer to. I imagine it has something to do with millimeters or whatever. I don't know. Have no idea. I'm not a big gun guy. But what I am really into is liberty and self-defense. And my father-in-law is very much a gun guy. He used to competitively target shoot. He's a hunter. He's an outdoorsman, consummate outdoorsman, obsessed outdoorsman, to the point where it's a little bit worrisome how much he wants to be out there. But, that's a healthy hobby, whatever. And when he's the one, thank God that I have him in my life to show my boys what's up with guns. Because I wasn't raised with that. My dad wasn't a hunter. We didn't have guns in our house when I was growing up. But my boys get the benefit of the knowledge, experience, wisdom, prudence, temperance of their grandfather. And so they've been exposed to weapons. They have used weapons to learn gun safety and to learn how to shoot. And you know what's interesting? You know what I notice about that? That the outcome of that culture of guns that this dipshit is talking about, my boys aren't interested in killing anybody. Weird that. Apparently, according to this guy, and according to the underlying premise of his absurd comment, merely being within the presence of a weapon imbues you with this homicidal mania, right? He talks about the culture, part of the culture of guns. I'm not aware of the gun culture translating into people becoming homicidal maniacs. I am, however, aware of the fact that the left-wing, rabid, sadistic, by any means necessary socialists who control many of our public institutions and who have been elected to office throughout the United States of America at every level, that they have a correlation with manic homicidal intention and action. And again, we're going through the list. We're going through the examples. I'm bringing the receipts. So, in response to this, my comment is, look, the gun control movement's dead. It's dead. It's going nowhere. It's about to suffer some major, major backslides. And that's because nobody who has the cognitive ability of a roach or above is looking at the last 48 hours, is talking to their children who are coming across the video of Charlie Kirk being shot in the throat and thinking to themselves, you know what the answer to this is? You know what would really solve this problem? Is if, with all these crazies out here, people who are faculty members, elected officials, journalists, all these people out there actively saying they want to kill me and the people who agree with me, I think the answer to that is taking my gun away. That'll keep me safe. Nobody's thinking that. Nobody. The gun control movement is well and truly dead. All right, let's take a look at this. And I haven't watched this video yet, but it did catch my attention. The Charlie Kirk effect is something that is a phrase that's been coined. And according to Girl Patriot, it's happening across our nation and the world. In the wake of Charlie's passing, his impact on the world continues to inspire an increasingly number of individuals to seek spiritual guidance. So let's listen to this together. And just, like aesthetic observation, right? Like you look at this lady, this sister, this fellow American, and I mean, if you saw her on the street and you were going to make a biased judgment, you'd probably say to yourself, yeah, this is a lefty. This is somebody who believes all the things, who's on that side. But we got to stop judging books by their cover, because it's time for America to come together. And I think this is likely an example of exactly how that's happening. Let's take a listen.
Well, something profound is happening right now, and I can't stop crying over a man I've never met. I have never in my life been able to see so black and white, good and evil, like just right in front of my face. And as painful as it is to see even people within arm's reach of me, people I know, being on that side, I am so fucking proud of myself for doing the work to get to where I am, to know that I will never be as despicable as the people over there. And that is why I am where I am today, is because I saw this shit a long time ago. Sorry, this hits a personal note. I walked away from that fucking party a long time ago and lost my entire life because of it. So some of us have been speaking up about this shit for a really long time, and we're fucking exhausted. So fucking exhausted, in fact, that for the last few years, I couldn't do it. I could not be loud. I could not be outspoken. I just wanted to live my fucking life. But now, do I go back? Do I stand up and keep fucking going? Because there are relationships I have built again that I will lose. I will alienate people around me. And I know some of you will be like, those people don't belong there anyways. But that tells me you've never actually been alone. Because some of us have. And it's not fucking pretty. But when somebody like Charlie Kirk gets fucking murked out of this world in a fucking split second, I've never been a religious person in my life. I wasn't raised that way. And some of the worst people in my life preached religion, and it never made sense to me because they were bad people. But luckily I did have I had a nice balanced view. I wasn't like, all religious people are bad. I knew that there was good. But other than that, I have never juggled with religion. But recently, before all of this, probably in the last year or two, I've felt at least a curiosity, a pull, whatever you might call it. I've just last week spoke to a woman at my work about it, and we had a deep conversation about what that means, why I'm feeling these things. But as a gay person, you've been told your entire life you don't belong, but I don't believe that. I mean, belong in religion. And I know it's bullshit, but we still feel that way, you know? So, like, you cannot help but be called to God when you see a man like Charlie Kirk assassinated in that fashion. Like, I don't... Because I think, at least I am struggling with how to redirect, how to channel the anger and the pain. Because I feel, we all feel violent, but the call to God makes us want to be better than that. And some of you would never fucking know that. You never know what that feels like. That doesn't mean the fight will not stand because it is on. It's just gonna be a different one. And I'm here. I'm fucking watching real close, and I still gotta decide where the fuck I fit into it. But, you know, y'all can count on me, man.
That's my sister right there. And again, just like with the video we watched of the black dude outside the church preaching, my heart is warmed. This is different. This feels different. It's because I sense the struggle there, right? The struggle of, this is obviously a woman who has a story. I mean, that's very clear, right? Who has had to deal with some tough stuff, questions of, and not just like in a narrative way, like, you know, like stories, right? Like it's she is wrestling with her identity and purpose. That's the American spirit right there. That's what makes her my sister. She's wrestling with identity and purpose. And she has a good heart that has been instilled in her by the Lord our God, and she hears his call. And she's had bad experiences with bad people, hypocrites, who have taken his name in vain and done the devil's work to present a false gospel to her, to present a bad witness. And those people, by the way, that, like, whatever the levels of hell are, you're going to the deepest, darkest, hottest spot. If that's you, if you're one of these people who left her with the impression of religion that she currently has, or that she's wrestled with in the past. But this is what we're looking at. We're seeing a coalition, a coalescing of folks from across the political spectrum, from a truly diverse point of view or range of Americans who are waking up and they're realizing, my God, this is not my country. This is not what I signed up for. And the impact of that is going to be tectonic. It's going to be tectonic. I've been saying for years that there is a moment that is going to come when younger generations in particular are going to look at the raw deal that they've been handed by their parents, grandparents, and everybody who's come before them for about the last 50 years, and they're going to collectively toss up their middle finger and say, screw you. And they're going to reestablish, they're going to be the hero generation that restores the United States of America. I never could have anticipated that an event like this was going to take place that would catalyze that. And Charlie Kirk, in terms of his work, what he was doing with Turning Point USA and the way he was engaging with people on campuses and his undeniable impact upon the ideological affinity of particularly young men, but young women as well. Never could have anticipated that this would happen, right? That we would have this inflection point that potentially could totally catalyze exactly that. But the outcome itself is something that doesn't surprise me at all. Something I've been looking forward to. I've been looking forward to the wisdom of younger generations to prevail over the insanity of the rest of us. And it really does seem like that's about to happen. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one here. There's just so much stuff to go over, and I mean, I probably don't have the time or, frankly, the hard drive space to go over all of it. But we just need to keep taking a look at these things. So there's several examples. This is one here in my feed, my X feed. You can see tons of examples of teachers who have thankfully been disciplined by their school districts for coming out and saying horrific things about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I'm not going to go specifically into this example, but there's just so many, right? And what that raises the question of is, where are they coming from, right? Like, when somebody does something horrific or says something outlandish and they're an outlier, you think to yourself, well, that person's just crazy, right? Like, it's a isolated incident. But we're seeing so many of them. And they've somehow achieved these positions of influence over our children. How the hell did that happen? That's a question worth contemplating. Where did all these people come from? And the answer seems very clear. The answer seems to be aligned with the radicalization of the killer himself. He came from, apparently, from what I know right now, facts could change, but from what I know right now, he came from what is reportedly being considered a conservative family, a good family, a Mormon family, a Republican family, mother and father who served their country and their community in their respective roles. And yet he did this. How? Well, because they, unfortunately, decided to send him to one of our institutions of higher learning, where he was radicalized, where he became an adherent of the Antifa, BLM, by any means necessary, sadistic left. And so what that demonstrates is that it demonstrates a lot of things. Not the least among them is the fact that we are confronted with the fact that we have major publicly funded institutions that are weaponizing our own children against us. Why are we tolerating that for even a second? For even a second. Which hints at the what that I'm going to come to later in terms of what the war plan is. Oh my God, he said war. What the war plan is to take back our country. But, that's happening, right? And then the other thing that it demonstrates is that there's a pipeline of radicalism that has been established through the march through the institutions that we know historically, because we can go back and read the things they've written. They've told us exactly what they wanted to do, what their plan was all along for decades. Like, this is all on the record. This is not some revelation. They have told us what their plan is. They wanted to march through the institutions. They wanted to take over. They wanted to take control. And they wanted to use the institutions to radicalize our children against us. And the primary mechanism for doing that, is churning out the teachers, churning out the professors. That's how they're doing it. Now, there are a lot of good teachers out there. I've talked to them. A lot of them teach my kids. A lot of them are here in my district. A lot of good teachers, a lot of good professors. The issue is not the classification of being a teacher. The issue is the orientation of the institutions that are producing them. And the public policy that has been established, such as in this state, here in Minnesota, where we've actually changed licensing standards and social studies standards and have done everything we can as the state of Minnesota to put a thumb on the scale to tilt people in this direction of being a sadistic, by any means necessary, rabid socialist. Like, if you, at this point in Minnesota, if you were anything to the right of Chairman Mao, you have to keep your beliefs under a lampshade. You have to hide it, because you will be literally disqualified from being able to be a teacher in this state if you have normal, traditional, respectful, virtuous, productive character. They don't want you. They don't want you if you're any of those things. They want rabid, radical activists getting in front of kids and telling them that America sucks, that white people are bad, and that they need to take to the streets and dismantle the United States of America. Okay? And that's the verbatim quote. Verbatim. That's what they say. That's what they want. They want to dismantle the United States. Right? They want to drag the fascists through the street. That's what they're saying. And so we can ignore that, or we can act upon it. I'm an action guy. All right, so I want to point this one out. This is one of my favorite interactions, certainly from today, that I've had with, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who a lot of the people are who think that, they can step to me. But, this guy, Andrew Gibo, comes at me with this just weak toast, weak tea, defeatist nonsense about the us versus them distinction. He says, us and them won't get us to a better place, Walter, although I'm not sure that's your goal here. He's not sure if my goal is to get us to a better place. Well, my goal is to get us to a place where I don't get shot. And neither do other innocent Americans. If you don't think that's a better place, that's a testament to your character, Andrew. You don't think that's a better place? You think we should continue to tolerate this? And this is what he was reacting to. I had posted a screenshot of an interaction between a couple of other accounts where I'm saying, listen, we've seen a lot of this in the past 48 hours. One of us makes a proclamation of truth. One of them immediately demonstrates how obvious that truth is. So Pro-America Politics said he was radicalized. Obviously, this is a reference to the killer who is now in custody. He was radicalized in college with extreme left-wing viewpoints. It's time to go after woke colleges like never before because they are destroying America and turning our kids into communists. This is an existential threat to America. That's an obvious truth. It's an obvious truth. We're going to go through more examples of it here momentarily. And the response to that by whoever this other person is how about this? Charlie pushed hate into every aspect of society. Someone was bound to react, and it follows a pattern. White, male Republican, brought up with guns. Charlie, you reap what you sow. Well, there you go. That is indicative of all the reaction that we're seeing on the left from all levels, not just from some rando on Twitter, but from elected officials, from faculty members, from journalists. They all think like that. And my point is that by responding in that way, you're literally demonstrating the truth of what the guy said. You've been radicalized. You've been turned into a sadistic, by any means necessary socialist. You want to pursue communism through any means necessary, and we know what means communists are willing to use because Mao killed millions of his own people in order to effect your dream of a utopian society where everybody just gets what they need, regardless of their productivity or virtue. So, I mean, like, at this point, I have no sympathy. None. No sympathy for my fellow Americans who provide any sort of grace to this worldview. Like, the only thing, potentially, the only thing that's more disgusting than the willingness to act in violation of your neighbor's rights is the willingness to lie down and take it. That I respect even less. Even less. You know, I think of William Wallace, right? I think of the issues that he ran into with people who just wanted to figure out a way to get along with the king, right? That is the most disgusting manifestation of character that humanity can produce. It's not the killers. It's not the tyrants. It's not those people. Those people are easy to deal with if you have a population that's worth a damn. Those people are easy to deal with. We know exactly what to do with them. The problem is those amongst us who think that the priority ought to be tolerance of people who want to kill you. There's a lot of stuff. There's so much stuff I could share with you. So much stuff I could share with you. But in order to really land the plane on the why that justifies the what that needs to be done, I just want to take you through some local flavor, all right? This is a thread of Minnesota Democrats, my colleagues, people who I sit alongside of and across from in St. Paul, who have been elected to office by the people of this state, okay? Folks who are entrusted, folks who stood up and took an oath to the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Minnesota, okay? Folks who set the policy that governs your public safety, your children's education, all right? Examples of what they're saying in the last 48 hours. Here we go. All right, so this is from Mitchell Williamson. Minnesota Democrats have liked, shared, or otherwise promoted some of the most disgusting rhetoric that could be imagined since the cold-blooded murder of Charlie Kirk. We're posting and tagging them all. All right, so let's just go down the list. Number one, no surprise, Senator Erin May Quaid, one of the most reprehensible human beings to ever be granted any sort of institutional responsibility whatsoever. Just a piece of garbage. Reposted 2 accounts on social media amplifying the message that Charlie was to blame for his own murder. She reposted, Charlie Kirk spent his life's work and all his energy and time targeting outgroups while arguing for a world in which gun massacres would be easy to enact, plentiful and inevitable, and he became famous and wealthy doing it. And we're not supposed to mention that because it's not polite. So just blatant justification for the murder of Charlie Kirk from a currently elected state senator in the state of Minnesota. She also retweeted, you can condemn murder and political violence without whitewashing Charlie Kirk's shameful history of hate, racism, white nationalism, and promotion of dangerous conspiracies that radicalize Trump supporters to violence. You can do both. Oh, okay. To what end? To what end? Because listen, if Charlie Kirk was a fascist, what's wrong with what happened a couple of days ago? Right? If Charlie Kirk was actually organizing to incite political violence and murder, and hate and racism and if he was actually doing those things, if that's who he was, then why would you object? Why would you take the step of performatively, just like as a disclaimer, saying, oh, I condemn murder and political violence? Why? Were you against World War II? Do you think we shouldn't have fought the Nazis? I mean, you're saying we're Nazis, you're saying we're fascists. What should be done with Nazis and fascists? Right? Absolutely abhorrent. Number 2, Representative Kaylee Vanger-Her liked a Facebook post which said he is a victim of his own rhetoric. He's a victim of his own rhetoric. I mean, that's just explicit. It's explicit. He caused his own death. He deserved it. He had it coming. Number 3, Representative Lucy Ream reposted a warning that, quote, authoritarians turn death into a myth, unquote, to fuel mobilization in between lunatic gun control rants, of course. And so, and again, this is just telling us how they think about this. It's our fault. Listen, if Charlie Kirk deserved what he got, then I guess I deserve it too. And so do my neighbors, and so do all my fellow Republicans, and so do Americans everywhere who hold traditional values and believe the things that we believe. There's no divorcing yourself, Lucy Ream, from that sentiment. Absolutely disgusting. These are people I met in person. These are people I sat across physically and sharing the same spaces with this deplorable, absolutely rancid nonsense that you people elect. Good God. Shame on Minnesota. My God. Number 4, Senator Jen McQuinn posted a quote from a defunct radical militia leader that suggested that, quote, they, presumably conservatives, were just waiting for the right moment. Get off the deep web, Jen. You should declare the left in this country to be an obvious open rebellion against the law of the United States. They're committing insurrection. They're doing and abetting an invasion, and they're blocking the execution of federal law. Well, that's true. That's true. See, this is the thing about, and this is why I have no tolerance for, and I'm not moved at all by concerns about rhetoric. Because there are 2 types of rhetoric. There's rhetoric that's true, and there's rhetoric that's false. There's rhetoric that's accurate, and there's rhetoric that's an illusion. There's rhetoric that's productive in illuminating truth, and there's rhetoric that's meant to conflate and obfuscate and lie. And so, for me to sit here and in unqualified terms condemn the evil that we're ticking through here, if that makes your tummy hurt, that's a you problem. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm supposed to be concerned about your emotional reaction to me pointing to me noticing the murderous intent of my colleagues at the Minnesota legislature? I'm supposed to be concerned that makes your tummy hurt, that I notice that there are people who I sit alongside in committees and on the House floor who would love to see me dead and are posting it online. I'm supposed to be concerned about how you feel about how I talk about that? It'll be a cold day in hell. Number 5, Senator Liz Bolden suggested that the sick and depraved action of a radical leftist is actually a gun problem. Don't believe your lying eyes. Yeah, it's all about the guns, and we've already talked about that. Like that red herring, that this gun, whatever company produced a weapon, and that weapon just got up on its own 2 feet and decided to shoot Charlie Kirk in the throat. No, that the weapon in the Annunciation Catholic school shooting just got up one morning and decided, like the Terminator, that it was going to mechanically maneuver itself over to a church and shoot a bunch of kids. I mean, the absurdity of that narrative is so blatant that, again, I have no sympathy, grace, respect, or tolerance for the vile people who are propagating it, because they know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know it. And they're doing it intentionally. They're doing it for political gain. They're doing it for personal gain. And they don't care who dies as a result at all. Obviously, we're going through the list, right? Number 6, Representative Nathan Coulter suggests that some leaders empower political violence. Which leaders, Nathan? And again, my visceral reaction to this, because each and every name on this list is somebody that I've either talked to directly, worked alongside of in a committee, or have seen in the corridors and hallways at my place of work, the Minnesota Capitol. I mean, I can't tell you what it feels like to know that there are people in your life who would celebrate your death. Celebrate it. That's a horrific feeling. Even for a cynical guy like me. Even for a guy who is not big on the feelings and the emotions, right? It even cuts to my heart that Nathan Coulter and Liz Bolden and Jen McQuinn and Lucy Ream and Kaylee Herr and Aaron May Quaid and who's the next one on the list? Let's scroll down to this. Representative Samantha Vang, yeah. They're just all laying it all out. Letting us know that if we were shot today, they'd be online the next day, justifying it. Oh, but, my priority should be bipartisanship and compromise. To hell with that. To hell with that. To hell with that. Not gonna happen. I'll let other people worry about that. I'll let leadership worry about that. They can worry about everybody getting along and negotiating the legislative process. I'm tilting against my declared enemies. I'm tilting against the people who would celebrate the fact if I died tomorrow. That's my priority. I don't care about anything else. Anything else. These people need to be defeated. They need to be socially censured. They need to be unemployable. Like, how are these people even a thing? How do they have jobs? How do they have friends? How did they get elected? What does it say about us? What does it say about our society? That people like this, who could justify the murder of an innocent husband and father, make your laws. Good God. Samantha Vang speaks for itself. Let's take a look at it. So I guess conservatives crying about political violence can agree on gun control, right? Well, I'll tell you, Sammy, yes, we can. We can definitely agree on gun control. You don't get one. Your insane trans allies don't get one. Anybody who is associated with a sadistic, by any means necessary political organization doesn't get one. And they also, by the way, get a cell somewhere where they're going to be incarcerated for decades. So you're not going to have to worry. Listen, you want gun control? I'll bring it to you, baby. I'll give it to you. You're about to experience a ton of gun control. And it's going to be the disarming of your sadistic, evil, murderous movement. Good God. And this other thing she says. So I guess conservatives crying about political violence can agree on gun control on the right. Guy comes back and says, is there something wrong with you? Please explain yourself. And she does. She says, did you want me to start with thoughts and prayers first or talking about actual solutions? Again, hearkening back to the mockery of religion, the mockery of prayer, the mockery of faith. And what's particularly disingenuous about this is the gun control crazies, they pretend that the only available solution to these incidents that we're seeing is to take your guns away. And they say, well, you're all you're offering is thoughts and prayers. You're going to do nothing. The choice is either doing nothing or submitting to our tyranny. Those are the choices. That's what's before you. We're not going to allow any other consideration of any other possibility, any other policy, any other solution. It's just You are a do-nothing that doesn't care about the death of children, or you're going to submit to our tyranny, disarm yourself, and leave yourself vulnerable to the army of radicals that we are using your public policy to indoctrinate and send to kill you. That's their narrative. That's their freaking narrative. And the scary thing is, by God, it might actually work. You might actually be that dumb. I don't know. And I'm past the point of caring whether or not you are. If you want to vote for this, God bless you, have at it. Earn what you desire. When the Israelites in ancient Israel begged Samuel for a king, God, through him, told them, yeah, okay, here's what you're going to get, all right? He's going to take your kids and use them in war. He's going to tax you. He's going to take all the stuff that you've produced. He's going to oppress you. You're going to have less freedom, less liberty. But, if that's what you really want, then, hey, the one thing about God is he lets you have what you want. That's why hell's a thing. You want to discard him? You want to be separated from him? You want to deny him? His answer is, okay, go ahead. Have fun. And that's my attitude at this point. If you want this, you want to re-elect Samantha Vang and Nathan Coulter and Aaron May Quaid, have at it. You want to re-elect Tim Walz? Get more of this? You deserve it. You're welcome to it. Because I know where my hope lies. And no matter what you people do to me, or my family, or my community, we win. To live is Christ, to die is gain. And we actually believe that, which really unleashes you from care and consideration over other people's opinions. My God. All right, this one, I got to get through at least the next two, and then we'll probably try to wrap this up. All right, so this one's Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, who we've already talked about, who is just absolutely shameless. Absolutely shameless. Let's take a listen to this.
Said, what I do know for sure is that, Charlie was someone who once said, guns save lives after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist. And I think, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, than to completely pretend that, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so. And
they call it a complete rewriting of history, that all he wanted to do was debate. That's literally all he did. What did he do that wasn't debate? What did he do that wasn't engaging in free speech and discourse and the marketplace of ideas? What did he do? Who did he kill? Who did he encourage to kill? Point to the incident, Elon, and whoever this other dipshit is. You're the ones who are revising history. You're the ones who are trying to make it look like he deserved to be killed. And that is the behavior of vile, evil people. Just absolutely despicable. And I am done entertaining any pretense to the contrary. Any pretense. Past this point, It is a indication of your moral worth as a human being, which side of the political aisle you're on. It really, truly is. Because the evidence is so prolific that one side is evil and the other side is just trying to survive, that if you don't recognize that, I can't respect your discernment. I can't respect your cognitive function. I can't respect your judgment, because you're either not paying attention or you're evading reality. And those are really quick ways for me to not care what you think about anything. Anything. Here's the last one we'll look at. And I haven't watched this one yet. This was sent to me and highlighted by a couple of people, so apparently it's a goodie. We'll see what it looks like. So number 9, Representative Lee Finke's campaign manager asks why we're mourning the death of a literal Nazi. Please find the employment records, videos, and intro below. This is the worst one yet. Finke, do you agree with your employee? All right, let's take a listen. I even after everything we've already seen, just looking at this person and reading the description of what we're about to see, I got to brace myself. Here we go.
I'm not sorry for not mourning Charlie Kirk's death. It is insane to see the amount of people that want to, like, clean his track record after his death. I'm sorry, but why are you mourning the death of a literal Nazi? I mean, we know why. But seeing that the White House is reacting to this, but not Melissa fucking Hortman and her husband and her dog's death, and a literal political assassination of politicians, not just right-wing nut jobs, seeing people express more concern about this than the hundreds of children who have been killed by gun violence, which was part of Charlie Kirk's rhetoric, by the way. He said, you better be prepared to die for your Second Amendment rights. I'm prepared to die for trans rights. I am prepared to put my body on the line for trans rights. So he did the same thing for his rhetoric and his values. F*** him. I'm not sorry for not mourning Charlie Kirk's death. It is...
What I do know...
That actually wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. I mean, that's just boilerplate leftism right there, right? Like that's, you could exchange her for literally any given DFL delegate. DFL is the Minnesota Democrat Party here in the state. I mean, you could plop anybody who is in a position of political influence in the city of Minneapolis or St. Paul into that space and get the same thing. I mean, it's actually kind of underwhelming and disappointing that that's all we got from that rant. But what's noteworthy again is who. Not the what, not what they're saying, but who they are. Campaign manager for one of my colleagues who shares a committee with me, who I look across the room at as we determine what judicial policy will be in the state of Minnesota. The person who Representative Finke chose to lead the campaign clearly thinks I'm a Nazi. Clearly. Because if they're willing to say that about Charlie Kirk, I ain't any more gentle than Charlie. In fact, I'm probably a little bit more outside the lines of decorum when it comes to talking about these issues. And so if Charlie was a Nazi who deserved to die, by God, certainly I am, right? And that's who one of my colleagues, again, somebody who I work with, somebody who sits in the same space with me from across the room, that's what they saw fit to hire, to pay, to work to get them elected. So all of this brings us to the what. Like, what's the war plan that I've been teasing this whole time? How do we address this? How do we move forward? Okay. Well, I think I need to start with the don'ts. I think I need to start with what we're not going to do. All right. What we're not going to do is engage in vigilante justice. What we're not going to do is take to the streets, destroy property, commit violence, assault, murder. That's what they do. That's what they did in 2020 after the George Floyd nonsense. That's what they do all the time. That's what they have organizations that are set up to fund and materially support and aid and abet in order to accomplish. They're the murderers. They're the criminals. They are the uncivilized barbarian horde, the scavengers, as Ben Shapiro calls them. That's them. That's not us. So that's what we're not going to do. Here's what we are going to do. We're going to demand and use every legal means at our disposal to leverage institutional power, which we currently have, particularly at the federal level, to engage in a war. Oh my God, he said war. Metaphorical. Good God. The stupidity of these people. Like, seizing on any word to be like, oh my God, he's calling for violence, after I literally just said no violence. But they'll do it. Yeah, I'm sure Aaron Rupar will have a clip of that just now, because that's the kind of scumbag he is. To engage in war against all of these organizations. George Soros should be in prison. How is he not? Let me take you back to 2000. All right. So here's the history of how this all went down, how we got to this point. You want to understand how we got to the point where in 1990, we had relative racial harmony. Nobody cared what my skin color was. I had friends from across the political spectrum. And even though we disagreed on things, we all considered each other friends and liked each other and extended love and grace to one another, slept in each other's homes, went out together. Like, how we got from that to shooting each other in the throat, right? Like, how did that happen? Well, here's how. In 2000, George W. Bush narrowly won the race for president of the United States against Al Gore. And he did so as a result of the adjudication of election irregularities in the state of Florida, which it might be hard to believe, especially now under the era of Ron DeSantis. But back in those days, Florida was actually a swing state. It was very purple. And it was also considered a key battleground state, where if you won Florida, a lot of people, a lot of pundits, just lazily would say, well, then you're going to win the presidency of the United States. That's how important it was. In 2000, there was a dispute over which candidate, Gore or Bush, won the state of Florida. Ultimately, that was resolved by the Supreme Court of the United States, due to, in no small effort, to the current or the contemporary Secretary of State of the state of Florida at the time. So the left looked at that, and George Soros in particular looked at that, and they said, you know what? Never again. We are never again going to allow due process and law and order and logic and reason and the facts get in the way of our electoral victory. And so they came up with a plan. And the plan was that they were going to start to target less sexy races, things that, to that point, nobody really cared about. Things like county attorney, district attorney, secretary of state, attorney general. And what they were going to do is they were going to install leftist, sadistic, by any means necessary socialists in all of these roles throughout the United States, throughout all 50 states in the Union. They were going to do that in order to affect the abuse of prosecutorial discretion to create chaos. You see this most potently here in Minneapolis, in the state of Minnesota, with Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, who was elected on a platform of not enforcing the law and has delivered exactly what she promised. Not enforcing the law, letting thugs back out onto the street, diverting people to resources. We just saw with the brutal, unprompted execution of a Norwegian immigrant female on a train or a bus by a guy who had been arrested 14 times for violent crimes. And our concern is supposed to be for him and his backstory and his origin and all the ways in which he's been underserved, rather than the woman who he butchered on a bus. This is the ideology that is Again, not on the fringe, but it is endemic and baked into the cake of the modern Democrat Party. This is what they believe. This is what they prescribed. Okay, so alongside that, that effort, that Soros effort, was also bolstered and furthering an effort that had been ongoing for decades earlier, which I referenced earlier, where of like literal communists, like the Communist Party in the United States, had set forth this plan that they were going to have this march through the institutions, right? They were going to become professors and teachers and CEOs. Like, you remember back in, 2008? In the Obama years, we had this political uprising on both sides, where on the right, you had the Tea Party. That's where I got involved. And then on the left, you had Occupy Wall Street, right? You go back and you listen to some of the rhetoric from Occupy Wall Street. They were against corporations. They were against the banks. They were against, obviously Wall Street, right? Where'd that rhetoric go? You don't hear that today. You know why? Because what they decided was that, we're actually just going to take over these institutions. We're going to become members of the board, right? We're going to become the CEOs. We're going to embed ourselves in these financial institutions so that we can utilize the economic power and the political influence to accomplish our goal of destroying the United States. And that's what they've done. And so as a consequence, what you have today is you have major institutions, Ivy League schools, corporations, and certainly, above all, nonprofits. Oh, those glorious nonprofits. Oh, they're so benevolent. You know, a nonprofit. The nice thing about a nonprofit is that they're not seeking profit. That makes them virtuous and benevolent and good. They form these nonprofits in order to engage in political activity and cultural influence in order to produce this radicalism, in order to produce kids who are willing to throw away the entirety of the upbringing that they were gifted and bequeathed by their parents and potentially ultimately engage in an act of terror like we saw this week. So the answer is jail time, prison time. The federal government, leveraging existing civil rights law, needs to go on a scorched earth campaign to prosecute, defund, and dismantle left-wing institutions from top to bottom. And I don't care who they are. Dismantle Harvard. I don't care. Dismantle Yale. Dismantle, certainly, any organization associated with George Soros. And not just dismantle them, imprison the people who are the decision makers and the thought leaders who are producing this violence in our society. Put them in jail for decades, ruin their lives. They don't deserve a second bite at the apple. They are traitors to our country. And again, I just showed you all of the examples of the sentiment that they are leveraging their institutional influence in order to promote. Now, you might say, you might be so inclined as to think, oh my gosh, Walter sounds like John McCarthy. How unlibertarian of him. By God, in the United States of America, we value freedom of speech and discourse and blah, 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 blah. Oh, do we? Do we? A guy just got shot in the throat for exercising those values. Do we value that? Clearly not. I don't want to hear about the free speech rights of people who are conspiring to murder me, because that ain't free speech. There is no dissonance here. There is no hypocrisy here. This is not a scenario where what I am suggesting violates literally anyone's right, because you don't have the right to conspire to murder me. You don't have the right to be a traitor to my country. You don't have the right to indoctrinate my children to hate me. You don't have that right. You don't. And until we as a people grow the balls to embrace that truth and act upon it decisively, we're going to continue to see this and we're going to deserve it. And that's what I want to leave you with here. A promise. My promise, and I'm not big on promises. I'm not big on, guaranteeing things. I've been wrong in the past, but I can make this one. I can make this one with 100% confidence. My promise to you is that you, my friend, you, my fellow American, you, my brother and sister, you are going to get exactly what you deserve. The only good news is you get to decide what that is. That's it. The good news is you get to decide. You get to decide whether or not you're going to uphold civilization, uphold the Constitution, uphold individual rights, or whether out of an abundance of concern for how your neighbor views you, you're going to let them take your kids and turn them into your murderers. That's a you choice. That's a you thing. But whatever you decide, boy, oh boy, just like God told the Israelites, you're going to get exactly what you asked for. Take care.